Yes, but I think I will stay here because I need to move that.
You have your water? Do you have enough?
Yes, thank you. I guess, yeah, this works. Hello? Hello, I guess we can start. Hope you are not too sleepy after this nice meal. Hope you don't have too much FOMO because of the very nice weather outside. The organizers were very efficient. They brought nice weather, fresh snow, perfect condition for not being here. Yes, this presentation is going to be about Entity Browser and remote media assets. Maybe the title should say Media and Entity Browser because media does its fair share here. But let's just take a look at Entity Browser. First, a few lines of introduction. My name is Primož. I come from Slovenia. On Drupal.org I'm Primsi. And I'm working for MD Systems from Zurich. I was somewhat involved in the media ecosystem during Drupal 8 porting. Now I do not have that much time for maintainership anymore. I maintain a small human. So maybe some parts of my memories are switched with how to change diapers and stuff like that. Yes, first, now this was the funny part, now the serious part. Let's take a look at the topics. First we are going briefly to look at how Entity Browser started, what's its purpose, how can we extend it, what tools does it provide to extend it. We will take a bit of a longer look into one of these tools, the widget plugin. After that, I'm going to look into 3 integrations that we were part of. One is Bynder. Bynder is an enterprise scale digital asset management system, DAM. Then Pexels, which is a source of free stock photos and videos, and Fontawesome, which is the popular icon library. What I want to claim in this presentation is that Entity Browser remains a relevant tool to integrate more complex things into the media experience. More complex meaning not just local media. Yes, and I will try to show that with those 3 examples. I guess most of you are familiar with Entity Browser. Everyone used it, someone implemented some stuff. We have the guy who wrote most of it here. The development of the module started at Examiner. Examiner at the time was quite a big Drupal 7 site. We were building a publishing editorial tool at the time on Drupal 8, which was still in development phase, so it was quite a nice ride. There was a need to have something for better media management, and Yanis, who is here started with Entity Browser. He architected most of it and helped to push forward it. We helped, then MD Systems saw some value in that and started helping as well. Acquia did the same, and others joined too. So what's the purpose of Entity Browser? Basically, the gist is to provide an extensible and flexible way to upload, select, or integrate media assets, or mostly media assets, and converting them to something that Drupal understands, which again, most of the time is media entities. But because it's Entity Browser we're talking about, not Media Browser, this means that Entity Browser is made to accommodate all types of entities. So, for example, Paragraphs uses Entity Browser to build a tool to search for reusable paragraphs. Yes, and you can do that from inside the Paragraphs form. Also, it provides an element, so you don't even need the field context. But most of the time, you will have fields and you will have entities, and those entities will be medias. Now for the architecture part, we mentioned that it was built with flexibility in mind. That's why it comes with many plugins. By implementing those plugins, you can extend Entity Browser. But out of the box already has quite a lot. We will quickly look at each of those plugins and then show what they do in the UI. The first one is the display plugin. This plugin defines how Entity Browser is going to fit inside of the UI. Out of the box, we have iframe, modal, and if you just have one widget, it's standalone. Oh no, that's a separate page. Yes, standalone is for the separate page. Here you can see basically the the display plugin defines the outermost box of the Entity Browser. Then we have the widget. That will be our focus for today, and we will talk more about that later. Out of the box, it comes with upload and view, but you have a lot to choose from here. Like you have drop zone, then the 3 ones we mentioned, and many others. The widget is basically that part. Here we can see drop zones widget, which provides a somewhat nicer way to upload multiple files. Then, because it's possible to have multiple widgets, we need a way to switch between those. Out of the box, again, Entity Browser provides tabs, drop-down, and standalone. So you can see it at work here, though this is from our distribution from our install profile called primer. You can choose between multiple things. The next one, it's a bit of an obscure one. The selection display plugin allows you to preserve the selection between widgets. So you can think of it like a shopping cart, where you can pick one media from the library, you upload one, then one from Pexels, and then submit all of them together. I didn't see that much use of that plugin, but yes, I guess there is a use case. Then an even more obscure one, the validation widget. This plugin defines ways to validate the submission. So it can be like the cardinality one, checks how many things you selected or uploaded. The entity type one checks if in fact you created the right entity type. And yes, for the last one, field widget display allows you to define how the selected entities appear on the host entity. So let's say you selected or uploaded stuff, and then you are back to the host entity, let's say node entity form, and you can see it work here, so it renders the entity you just created or selected. Yes, those were the plugins. Now we said we want to explain the widget plugin a bit more in details. The widget is the connection point between the user, the media asset, source, and the Drupal. Meaning, here is where the user selects or uploads something, and then the widget then converts it to something that fits into Drupal. And now let's take a look at the actual implementation of this. As it goes for most plugins, we need to often provide some configuration. You can do that by implementing those methods: build configuration form, validate and submit. What goes into this configuration? It can be API keys if you want not to share them between instances of the same widget type. So for example, if you have two Pexel widgets, then you would need to say the API key 2 times. Then normally it provides a way to define what media bundle are you going to create, or entity bundle are you going to create, and then how to map remote fields into those bundles. For example, here we choose that we are going to create an image, and then remote name field is going to map to the local name field on this bundle. License link field is going to map to source link, and so on. And then, yeah, you can, for example, this is from Pexels. We also state here which size we are going to download. Let's say now that our widget is configured and we want it to do something. This is done in the getForm method, which is one of the most important parts of the widget. The widget is basically a form whose goal is to gather and tell entity browser about entities that were selected. In this case, we have a drop zone widget because here we just use the drop zone JS element. There is actually not much we do here. We just say, okay, use this element. This is the configuration, and we pass that to entity browser, and most of the work is done. Now we have the form. The user chose the assets and submitted. Entity browser now wants to validate what was created or selected. But if we are talking about creation, there might the entities we need to validate might not be there yet. So we will see later there is another method where we prepare the entities. The main point here is that Entity Browser already takes care of the validation using the specified plugins. And then integrations just need to maybe deal with edge cases or empty states and so on. So we said we need to create entities before we validate them. We do that by implementing the prepare entities method. Here we normally first check if we already have an existing entity, so somebody did the same process, already created that entity, so we don't then go any further. We already have it in the database, we use that. If not, then we try to figure out what we need to create and populate the fields. We try to do it like so that the entities here are created but not saved yet. So we will do that later. Because then if validation would fail, then we would have an entity there that we don't need. Also, it's good practice to temporarily store the created data somewhere, like form state, because we will need them later on, and then we don't need to repeat the prepare entities step again. Yes, so that's the part where we do that. When everything is in order, the form is submitted. It's nice to, it's a good practice to fire some event or hook here, because other modules might want to map more fields or even switch between bundles, which is possible if you want to have like a dynamic selection. For example, if you have drop zone and you have like bundles for JPEGs and PNGs, then you can decide here that which bundle are you going to use. Yes, this was for the most part for like a brief recap of the widget. Now let's look at the 3 integrations we want to showcase. I will try to highlight the differences for those implementations. First, Bynder. It's the most complex one. It uses its own UI component called Compact View for browsing. It does create media entities, but the source of the actual assets remains on Bynder. It's possible to sync both ways, so when something changes on Bynder, then Drupal gets notified, and if something changes in Drupal, then it gets pushed upstream. It also provides other integration features like access control and so on. It also provides upload, which the others don't. Then we have Pexels. Pexels is in one way the most classical one. It uses the API for search and downloading the assets. Then the assets are stored locally, and then and we built our own UI for that. Font Awesome again uses their API, but just for searching, because we already have the SVGs that we use locally, and we just map to those. So basically what we do is just use their search, and then for reuse create media entities. Let's begin with Bynder first. What does this digital asset management system bring to the table? First, at Bynder, they call it that it offers a single source of truth, meaning that you have always the latest state of the assets and the metadata. They provide quite a nice UI for browsing and organization called Compact View. They provide access control, so who can upload, who can download. They obviously support also upload. And yes, this results in better consistency in branding. Now for the Drupal integration, basically the Drupal integrations comes with 5 modules. The base module, which offers the core functionality like the entity browser widgets, media plugins, media source plugins, the OAuth logic, metadata syncs, and so on. Then you can enable the SNS notifications, which offer then like very fast notifications about changes, and you in Drupal can react to those changes. Then the other one is usage, where you basically upload usage data to their API. And there is a demo module as well. So how does this look like in the UI? On the node side, it's just a normal entity browser field widget. When you press select assets, if you are not logged in to the brand portal, you are prompted to go through the login. So meaning that we have sort of 2 authentication systems. If you do use Drupal, first you have to be logged in as a Drupal user, and then you have to log into Bynder as well. So when you press that connect, you get through the OAuth workflow. And when all this is done, the compact view appears. Compact view is basically Bynder's browser. It's quite nice. It allows for very efficient searching. Big companies have potentially lots of assets, and this solution is quite nice. You have multiple filters, you can search for keywords, you can make collections, and so on. But that's basically all their JavaScript component. This is not built in Drupal. We have 2 possible options for compact view. It can be single and multiple. Basically, that's just how many items you are allowed to select. But if you do select single, then they have another nice thing, which is on-the-fly transformations. So let's say you pick an image, then something like options for transformation appear, and you can transform it, like make it grayscale, flip, and so on. And then there is the upload widget, which uses Dropzone.js. Looking at the actual implementation, you will see that for the field widget, for the entity browser widget, is quite straightforward. Basically, because we use compact view, the only thing that needs to be done is to attach this somehow. So we just attach it via JS, and we pass some parameters and provide the field where the JavaScript part is going to write. So that's the JavaScript part here. That's the name of their component, Bynder compact view. Just call the method open. Use the settings that we just defined in the widget, and then react to the selection. We just build this variable with all the selected items, and here we populate. We pass that to that input field that the only field that we created, and automatically submit. Then in the prepare entities part, we loop over that selection. As we said before, it's always a good practice to check if we already have existing entities. So we do that here. And yeah, this is then the end result. Because I used the filters thing here, we have this upside down monster, which was then also grayscaled. And here then you have the image pointing to the brand system, the brand portal. Now for the upload widget. The upload widget is a bit more complex. I mentioned before that I didn't show it in the selection widget. Here is where we say, okay, you are not logged in, you should log into Bynder. If the user is logged into Bynder, then dropdown is used for to upload files to the form, not to Bynder yet. So again, not very much stuff to do here. And then in the form part, we say we have the logic that switches between different states. If the user already uploaded stuff, then we have this value in the session, Bynder uploaded batch results. If not, we just show the button to submit to Bynder. Then the submit method basically handles the same thing. If we still need to upload files, then a batch process is first prepared. And in the batch process, we call the Bynder's API. They provide PHP library. So that's basically the whole interaction is done there. And then in this case, prepare entities, which is quite important in other parts. It's just used to pass along the created entities, because we also create entities in the batch process. We will see now. When the upload process finishes, we basically get the same result as before. We have the asset we uploaded, with this difference that we first uploaded to Bynder, then got the information regarding the upload, and then used this locally. Now to the next one, that's Pexels. Did anyone use Pexels already? I was actually quite surprised at the quality and just everything. First, it allows both commercial and non-commercial usage without mandatory attribution, but that's of course always nice to do. The quality is actually pretty good, and they have a ton of things to choose from, and at the end it's community driven, so that means that you always get fresh new material, new content. Here I searched for Switzerland, so you can see that I quite like those pictures. The Drupal integration is less complex than Bynder in terms of the search widget, but there is more logic in the widget itself, because we need to build an UI for that. They offer a REST API, very simple, basic one, but one limitation is that it offers limited metadata. So if you want to build a categorization with that, it's a bit of a challenge. Fine print. If you want to try the module, there is a very strange way to do it. because there is a namespace collision. Maybe there was a module already named media Pexels on Drupal.org, so you have to do it like that. There is info about that on the module page. For the UI, we have some configuration on the widget backend and the search on the widget. We already saw this slide before. We defined the API keys, which are not shared between the widgets, and then the mapping, upload location, and the size. On the widget itself, we on the top have a few search fields. Orientation works perfectly, color a bit less. And here again I searched for Switzerland, and that's now inside Entity Browser. Now for the actual implementation. First, let's take a look at the form as reflected from the UI. We have two parts. The search form we saw before with keyword and orientation and so on. And in the second one we build the result. The state of the form, how it looks like, it's controlled by if we have the keyword, we use that, we just directly query their API. And yes, then we receive the results. We prepare the previews. One thing to note here is that they also have a limit on API calls. So we try to preserve as much data from the initial one, from the search one. Yes. And then in the prepare entities section, again, same as Bynder, we first check if we already have the assets locally. If not, we download the file via their API. If not, we check for the local file. If there's no, we check the mapping. Basically, same thing again. And yes, because as I said, not much metadata is available. We also use the path, so we can like tag more easily. I mentioned at the start, it's always good practice to dispatch an event or hook. For example, here our local distribution has more fields on the media that we are creating. So we fire here an event, and then we populate those additional fields using that. So that would be pretty much regardless this integration. The downloaded files then get stored locally, and then Drupal takes care of the derivatives and so on. The last one is Font Awesome. Probably everyone knows that. It's a well-known icon provider. They provide an extensive library with wide range of icons covering all possible topics. There are free ones and licensed ones. The versatility of those icons is quite nice. You can scale them, you can customize them. If you use SVG, you can even style parts of that. For example, this is usable for a duotone. The duotones ones are the ones that have two different colors. You can say, I want this color for all the second colors of all icons. If you use SVG. As for the Drupal module goes, we don't, as I said before, we don't download anything. We only use their API for searching. The module supports both free and pro, and all the SVGs are available locally in the libraries folder. Another small print, it's not publicly released and it's quite tied to our distribution, so maybe there is plan to do it in the future, but I'm not sure. Now for the UI, it's quite similar to Pexels, with even less configuration. So here we just say, yes, we want to create SVGs, which is SVG is the bundle we have. One thing to note here is that we also define the version and the license, because first we need to know the path to the local SVGs, and second, their API needs to know which version to query, because maybe not all icons are available in all versions. Similar to Pexels, Font Awesome widget only has a few components, even less than Pexels, just the search and the style, and then the results. And you can see it's quite similar to Pexels. Looking at the implementation, again, in the get form, we follow the similar logic. First, we build the search form. Then, if we have the keyword, we query the API and build the list. They use GraphQL, so we rely on a PHP GraphQL library for that, but that is just for this and I think for versions. And then when we have the result, we do use the result for the metadata, but then we just use the local files for previous. In prepared entities, same process again. First, check if there is an existing one, then creating a file. And then that's the end result. We have like icons there, and they are inline because we are using the SVG formatter. And as I mentioned before, this then allows us to interact via CSS with different parts of the icon. Yes. Most of the concepts were definitely repeating, especially for integrations that are not that complicated. The process is fairly similar, but similar process and designs are welcome because that brings consistency. We basically, in our distribution, also use the same JavaScript and CSS for both of them. Bynder is a bit similar. Sometimes you will have to do additional parts in the UI, like in the widget get form, you will need to maybe create some tree. I think we did that with Elvis, or add some additional facets and so on. But the point is that the structure remains the same, and most of the time there is no bending over backwards. But that's a feature, not a bug, because that means that entity browser plugins are doing their job correctly. They are not getting in the way too much. As you could see, they were able to accommodate those three quite different integrations fairly easily. So in the end, I hope I made my point from the beginning of the presentation that entity browser still allows you for fairly seamless and yes, easy integration, also from the developer's point of view. One thing that I want to also mention is yes, with in Drupal core we now have a browser. We can upload different things and we can reuse them, but as far as I know, there is no real equivalent for Entity Browser yet in terms of when you want to integrate something more complex, like something remote stuff. There is an issue, I think Sasha told me, but it's not moving quite yet. So maybe in the future, but for now, Entity Browser remains basically the only tool at our disposal for stuff like that. Maybe someone knows other stuff, but yes, and welcome to tell about that. So, questions?
Thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting. My question is about the Bynder integration, and Bynder's vision, as I understand, is single source of truth for media files or image files. So once we have a copy on our local machine, what happens if, let's say, that asset gets updated for whatever reason? Or how would you think about that if you have like this remote library and we have a local copy of that remote file?
We do create media entities, but we don't download the files. So Bynder has its media source plugins that deal with the mapping to Bynder. We do create thumbnails, I think, just for easier browsing. And I think there is a process that updates those. Still have time?
About 10 minutes. So.
Okay, maybe if I manage to, we can just briefly see how that looks like. Now that will be a challenge. Yes, so I think that's one for, yes, that is, I have to show it in two different places, but that's, here we will see Pexels and Font Awesome. So this is primer, the distribution that we have. We just go to Add Media. We select, first let's select an icon, let's say car. So that's that's Font Awesome search, showing car plus cart, it seems. So we have our icon, and then let's add another one. So now if I had the selection plugin, I wouldn't need to go back, but then I think Pexels doesn't play very nice with the selection plugin. It just covers it all, so I couldn't do that. And search for a car here as well. You have a lot of cars. Or maybe we want just, let's see how it works. I want the red car. This vintage one maybe. Yes. So basically, there was not much difference between the two widgets, but that's, I guess it's fine because it brings consistency. And then for Bynder, it's here. That's the demo Bynder example. So this is the compact view. So that's something they provide. For example, you can now search between text, like example content. You can browse some collections. Then maybe let's see if it's enabled. Yes. So that are the transformations. Those are the transformations that I was mentioning. So you just say, okay, rotate that. Did it rotate? Ah, we have to say how much. What does it have? Yes. Yes. So we have that. Yes, here it doesn't appear because it relies on their special URL for those things. Yes, so that's it. If there are more questions.
Can you show again the entity browser widget? Because I'm a bit confused now. I mean, we have the media library in Drupal core. And as I understand, if you then say I have a media entity, here you select a different form widget, if I understand. You take the entity browser widget.
Yes, if you want to, I mean, this is a bit of a special case because that's theirs. But what you do is just to have an entity reference field on the node form, let's say. Then entity browser provides a field widget that then deals with all, basically. You have this button, select entities, then it opens that. Then in the when you have the widget, then the only thing that the widget needs to say to entity browser is which entities were selected, and then again the field widget deals with telling the host entity which entities were selected.
And in the other example, I think you can also select from the Drupal media library as well, right?
Yes, I think you can, yeah. So if we go, so
But
those are the ones that we just created, yes. No more questions? Okay, thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day.